Welcome to Zimbabwe, the House of Stones. Zimbabwe, a land of great people, a land of wonders. From the thundering smoke of the majestic Victoria Falls to the rolling valleys and mountains of the enchanting Eastern Highlands, the mystical water spirit of the Nyami Nyami in the Kariba, one of the world's largest dams. Welcome to Zimbabwe. Tinokugashirai siyakuyamukela at this great nation full of natural wealth, wildlife, and rich soils. Be at home in this great nation of warm, friendly, and cultured people. Welcome to Zimbabwe. Tinokugashirai siyakuyamukela. Current Affairs are your window into Zimbabwe, where the world meets Zimbabwe. Join us for unscripted live events, state functions, parliamentary debates, independence, heroes, and defense forces celebrations, and many more. We are committed to telling the unbiased Zimbabwean story, giving you unfettered access to the latest news and developments shaping our nation. From the streets of Harare to the world stage, Current Affairs brings you the stories that matter most to Zimbabweans. Don't miss out on our in-depth coverage of local and international issues, expert analysis, and thought-provoking discussions. ZBC Current Affairs, where the world meets Zimbabwe. Stay informed, stay engaged, and stay ahead.
Mana Pools National Park was designated in 1963 as a national park, and it was also recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1984, and was also recognized as a Ramsar Site in 2013.
Deep in the heart of northern Zimbabwe, where the mighty Zambezi River flows, lies a haven of pristine wilderness and exceptional wildlife. Welcome to Mana Pools, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and Ramsar Site, teeming with life and natural beauty. The name Mana means four in the local language, referring to these four large permanent oxbow lakes, remnants of the Zambezi River's historical course. These pools are crucial for wildlife, especially during the dry season, providing a lifeline for the incredible diversity of animals that call this place home.
The word Mana comes from the four pools, one of which you are seeing from the background, which is Chisasiko Pool, and we've got the Long Pool on the south, and Green Pool and Chine Pool. Mana Pools as a Ramsar site, it was recognized due to its importance with wetlands. As you all know, with the Zambezi River that is flowing through Mana Pools and the floodplain that is forming these four pools that are more supportive in terms of water supply for our biodiversity. It is also recognized as a biodiversity hotspot with different number of herbivores and carnivores and bird species. In terms of herbivores, generally we've got the largest mammal, which are the elephants, and we've got the buffaloes, and we've got the kudus, and we've got the elands and the nyala, and so on. And in terms of carnivores, we've got the most famous, the lions, we've got the leopards, we've got the cheetahs, we've got the wild dogs, which are more endangered. We've got also the hyenas.
But Mana Pools is not just a haven for large mammals. Over 450 resident and migratory bird species breed in these wetlands, including the vibrant carmine bee-eaters, the charming Nyasa lovebirds, and the elegant rock pranticles.
Mana Pools is identified as an important bird area. We've got the water birds, the African jacana, the grey herons, we've got the marabou storks, which are also endangered. We've got also the vultures are also key here in Mana Pools ecosystem.
The Zambezi River and its associated pools support populations of Nile crocodiles and various fish species. For the adventurous, Mana Pools offers a unique wilderness experience with opportunities for canoeing and exploring the river's tranquil waters.
Mana Pools is a tourist destination which is recognized worldwide, which attracts a lot of tourists, which brings revenue to our economy. And also, socially, Mana Pools is a place where people can recreate, reconnect with nature. Mana Pools is also a cultural heritage site where you can have the history of the people who are living here in Mana Pools. As you can see, the Chisasiko Pool has got a lot of history behind this pool. There were people living just around this pool, and they require that history to keep on going, and protecting this landscape also help to conserve that cultural heritage.
For those seeking close encounters with wildlife in their natural habitats, Mana Pools is a true paradise. Whether you're a seasoned safari goer or just starting out, this incredible ecosystem is sure to leave you in awe.
The Zambezi River and the four pools here in Mana Pools, they support a wide range of biodiversity. From the aquatic species like fish, tilapia species, you can find from the Zambezi River, and also within these four pools. And also these four pools serves as a water source for most of our animals, from the herbivores to the carnivores. They all rely on these four pools during the wet season and during the dry season. These four pools support quite a number of hippopotamus. Even along the Zambezi River, there's quite a number of hippopotamus. These hippopotamus, they are supported by the water sources that are here as their habitat, and they also use the floodplain as their feeding ground.
Mana Pools is a key component of the Lower Zambezi Mana Pools Transfrontier Conservation Area, a massive transboundary landscape in the SADC region, a place where nature's beauty and wonder await, and where the wild heart of Africa beats strong.
Land of sunshine, land of plenty, land of blue sky, land of promise, overflowing milk and honey. That's where I wanna be. It's a place for you and me. So shangane Zimbabwe tina. So shangane Zimbabwe, yebo so shangane Zimbabwe mama. So shangane Zimbabwe, land in between two great rivers. There's Zambezi, the Limpopo, with meanders full of wonders. Land of nature, land of beauty. Every valley has a lily, jacaranda and mimosa. Every hillside, it's a pastime paradise. There is something in this land that's so special and so rare. Its history is full of mystery. I cannot tell you what it is. You can find it on your own when you're there. Sangana ku Zimbabwe vagomana. Sangana Zimbabwe. Sangana ku Zimbabwe vazikana. tosangana kwa Murewa, tosangana kurusape, tosangana kumarondera, tosangana kwa Mutare, tosangana kuZimbabwe vanamaye. Meet me in Zimbabwe. There is music in the air with the sound of Saturday. So come along, my friend, won't you take my hand? Meet me in Zimbabwe. Meet me in Zimbabwe. I look over here, I look over there. All I see is just so weird. People dancing, people prancing, people spending their money, they just don't care. Forcing and fighting, jumping one another, working all day for just $1. It's a crazy big city, just like any other where cats and dogs are living in a parlor while you and I are living in the gutter. Son of man, you got to get going to my motherland. Kumusha. C-I-M-B-A-B-W-E. What does it spell? Zimbabwe. What you say? Zimbabwe.
The Zimbabwean Land Reform Program has marked a significant turning point for the country's agricultural landscape. Since its inception, the program has empowered over 300,000 new farmers by redistributing land formerly held by a few white commercial farmers. This initiative has integrated many local farmers, particularly those from rural communities, into the formal agricultural sector. The program has helped transform subsistence farmers into commercial producers, boosting agricultural productivity across the country.
My name is Talamikis Wachidawanyika. I'm 21 years old. Started farming when I was 19. We farm in Norton. Right now I've got 40 hectares of wheat in the ground. And then during the summer we're doing 200 hectares of maize. I've always loved farming. I've always been into farming ever since I was grade 6, going to my uncle's farm. And that's when I started learning to farm, learning the skills, enjoying the lifestyle. And yeah, as soon as I finished my school, I went into farming full time, and with the help of the government through Command and those other input schemes, it actually helped us a lot to get up and move as a young guy.
I started farming way back on the onset of the land reform. That was in 2000, and I got my farm in 2001, but effectively I started the practical element of farming in 2002. I never looked back. I was a young guy. I was only 24 years of age. And, when I started, I wasn't really, like I'm passionate about farming. I just looked at it as a business. But as time went on, I became so passionate about it.
We have been farming for the past 3 years. That is after our parents passed on, and we have taken over the operation. We are beneficiaries of the land reform program that was initiated by ZANU-PF-led government. In a nutshell, what I would love to say is this program has really empowered us as the black people in what we have been doing. Economically, now we're able to farm. We've got wheat, we've got livestock, we do row cropping, and we're looking forward to be in a position to increase our area of cropping so that we can be able to fill our national silos.
I got wind that the land reform is benefiting black entrepreneurs. So being an entrepreneur at heart from a young age, I just thought I could try the opportunity in the agriculture space. So I took it upon myself to start farming. So I started with those 3 hectares of potatoes. By the time the new dispensation came, I was now doing 200 hectares of crops, raw crops and the potatoes. Now, through the stewardship of President Idi Mnangagwa and the government facilities that he rolled out, I benefited a lot through the John Deere facility, the CBZ John Deere facility scheme, where I got a 95 horsepower brand new John Deere tractor, where I paid 15% deposit, and the facility was for 3 years. So I'm paying at bank rate. The interest rate is 6%. No way have we ever come across such facilities in this country, and it's happening in agriculture through these indigenous banks.
As a youth, I'm so privileged and so glad that we benefited from the land reform program. And I'm actually taking this as a career and taking it as a business as well. As for now, we are sitting on, our actual farm is actually 32 hectares, but we actually renting out around 600 hectares under irrigation. Yeah, so for winter we have around 250 barley, then 100 wheat.
One of the most notable achievements has been progress towards food self-sufficiency. Zimbabwe, once heavily dependent on food imports, now meets over 90% of its food needs domestically. This success is largely attributed to the increased cultivation of staple crops such as maize, wheat, and small grains like millet and sorghum. To illustrate this, maize production has risen to approximately 2.8 million tons annually, feeding millions locally. Tobacco production, one of Zimbabwe's major foreign currency earners, has thrived under the land reform program. Over 70,000 small and medium-scale farmers are now engaged in tobacco farming, up from about 2,000 before the reform. In recent years, Zimbabwe produced more than 200 million kilograms of tobacco annually, making it one of the top 10 global producers. Tobacco sales contribute about 20% of Zimbabwe's GDP highlighting the sector's critical economic role. This success reflects the resilience and adaptability of the newly empowered farmers who have embraced modern farming methods and market systems. Wheat production has also seen encouraging growth. Previously, the country was only relying on imports. With the emergence of the land reform, and for the first time in decades, Zimbabwe has been able to meet 100% of its wheat requirements locally. Annual production increased to over 200,000 tons, eliminating reliance on costly imports. Government support through inputs, training, and mechanization has been vital in boosting yields and improving farming practices among new farmers.
When we talk about cereals, we talk about Mashonaland West, and that's mainly your Zimba and Makonde. So here, there's a huge drive from a government point of view through our Agritech extension. They're helping us, to realize the full potential in terms of cereal growing. And we are proud as young guys that we are constituting at least about 30 to 40% of the national basket in terms of wheat production in this country. We are talking of guys who are 35 and below who are doing this production.
Yeah, here as you can see, I'm growing wheat 120 hectares. And in summer, I do tobacco again, 120. Then I've got maize, 70 hectares. But land is a limiting factor. But we thank the President, Edim Nangagwa, for his programs, which helps us a lot in terms of producing our crop.
The first planting that we did was 15 April. It was a very early planting because the crop before this was tobacco. I'm expecting a yield of at least 6 tons per hectare. 6 tons per hectare.
Horticulture is another sector showing great promise. The production of fresh vegetables and fruits such as tomatoes, onions, and citrus has risen sharply. Zimbabwe exports high-quality horticultural produce to international markets including South Africa, the United Kingdom, and the Middle East. These exports generate valuable foreign currency and contribute to economic prosperity. Horticulture also provides smallholder farmers with important income. The Land Reform Program has been pivotal in transforming Zimbabwe's agriculture. It has enabled food self-sufficiency, expanded tobacco and wheat production, reversed small grains, and propelled horticultural growth. These successes contribute not only to the nation's economy, but also the empowerment of its people and the sustainability of its food systems.
Current Affairs, your window into Zimbabwe, where the world meets Zimbabwe. Join us for unscripted live events, state functions, parliamentary debates, independence, heroes, and defense forces celebrations, and many more. We are committed to telling the unbiased Zimbabwean story, giving you unfettered access to the latest news and developments shaping our nation. From the streets of Harare to the world stage, Current Affairs brings you the stories that matter most to Zimbabweans. Don't miss out on our in-depth coverage of local and international issues, expert analysis, and thought-provoking discussions. ZBC Current Affairs, where the world meets Zimbabwe. Stay informed, stay engaged, and stay ahead. Monavale Flay is home to a diverse range of plants and grass species, including unique indigenous communities that thrive in its alkaline soils. The wetland is a bird watcher's paradise, with over 240 species documented, from majestic birds of prey to colorful songbirds. Monavale Flay is a haven for avian enthusiasts.
We've got special and unique bird species such as the striped crake, which is actually a migrant that comes from North Africa. We also have streaky-breasted flufftail. Those are iconic bird species which are actually known by locals and international birders alike. They come here during their migration period, which begins around October and ends around April. So they come to visit to see them.
Monavale Flay is more than just a bird sanctuary. It's also home to a surprising number of mammals, including the threatened Cape clawless otter and common duiker. And if you think that's impressive, the wetland also supports a rich community of reptiles and amphibians, including the endangered giant bullfrog and various snake species.
Monaville wetland is within an urban setup. Actually, it's about 4.2 kilometers from the CBD, and there are mammals that we actually find around here, like the bush pig, duiker, serval, mongooses, otters, and scrubby, amongst other reptiles and crustaceans. So that's the beauty and uniqueness of this wetland.
Monaville Vlei stands as a shining example of how a dedicated community can successfully protect and restore a vital urban ecosystem. Beyond its biodiversity, Monaville Vlei plays a vital role in purifying water, mitigating floods, and recharging the groundwater table that replenishes Lake Chivero, Harare's main water source.
These wetlands, they act like a sponge. You know, when it rains, as the water is sinking into the ground, it is actually filtered and cleaned underground. They also store water underground, which replenish our boreholes as well. And this is actually beneficial during the dry season or during droughts, because the water will be underground. And it also feeds into the streams leading to Lake Chivero and Lake Manyame as well.
Let's work together to preserve this precious ecosystem for future generations. Visit Monaville Vlei and experience the beauty and importance of urban wetlands. Let's protect our wetlands.
Mana Pools National Park was designated in 1963 as a national park, and it was also recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1984, and was also recognized as a Ramsar Site in 2013.
Deep in the heart of northern Zimbabwe, where the mighty Zambezi
It is a good afternoon, and thank you so much for staying with us right here on a ZBC Current Affairs. As you always make sure I get to give you all the live proceedings. Earlier on, we were, of course, following the proceedings from the State House, where His Excellency was launching the National Development Strategy number 2. And we said in the afternoon, we will also witness the 2026 National Budget presentation in the new Parliament building. Of course, the Minister of Finance, Investment, Promotion and Development, that is Professor Mthuli Ncube, is presenting the budget this particular afternoon. And we want to understand what exactly is happening. But I'm not alone in the studio. I do have my co-presenter Munya. It's a good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah.
And we also do have our economic analyst, Mr. Titus Mukoyo, who's going to help us unpack and understand issues in terms of what to expect. What can the budget do, the tax bracket, in terms of where we are going? Mr. Mukoyo, it's a good afternoon and thank you for being here.
Good afternoon and thanks for inviting me. Thank you for inviting me.
Let's quickly delve into the budget itself. What are we looking at? What are we expecting from the budget to be presented this afternoon?
I think the 2026 budget is an important budget because it is the budget that is linking National Development Strategy 1 to the National Development Strategy 2. We have seen the launch of National Development Strategy 2 earlier on, and there are gains and there are losses that we had under the National Development 1. But all in all, we found that the economy is now doing better. It is now more stable. The macroeconomic environment is stabilized. We have seen inflation coming down. We have seen the exchange rate stabilizing. The financial service sector stability is doing well. So we are now moving into the National Development Strategy 1, which is going to focus more on the drivers of economic growth, looking into issues to do with investment, looking at issues to do with innovation and technology. And that budget, we are going to see a deliberate approach by the Minister of Finance in order to support industrial development in terms of production and productivity, which is critical for the economy to achieve its 2023 target, which is to be an upper middle class economy. So this is a transitional budget where it is going to lay the foundation for the rolling out of the National Development Strategy 1, and it is the National Development Strategy 1 has its own targets, and this is a tool that is going to be used by the government in order to achieve the targets under the National Development Strategy 2.
Okay, so now that you're talking of the National Development Strategy 2, which we did witness the launch of its launch this morning, we want to know, what does the 5% growth on GDP mean to the generality of Zimbabwean population?
What it generally means is that more goods and services are available for consumption, because when the GDP is growing, it means more goods and services are now available for the individual. Remember, when you calculate these GDPs, we end up calculating the GDP per capita. What is the output that is attributed to an individual in a country? So that growth signifies that there is an increase in the living standards in the country. And the growth that we witness in the economy, it is also an indication of that there is job creation that is taking place.
Just to cut you there, Mr. Mkoyo, our pictures are showing the Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion, Professor Mthuli Ncube, stampeded by those members of the Fourth Estate trying to get the picture that you know. Of course, as you can see, Professor Mthuli Ncube has just entered the new Parliament building, the famous briefcase, and people always bring and trying to get that picture of what the minister will be presenting, and of course that's what we all have been waiting for. Yeah, you were saying, you can please go ahead.
Yeah, so I was saying a 5% growth is something that is important to the economy, because it means more in goods and services are available for people for consumption. Because remember, the ultimate goal at the end of the day is to make sure that there is equitability and equality in the economy, inclusive access to opportunities, inclusive access to social welfare, inclusive access to food and security. So that is the importance of having a 5% GDP per annum growth, which is a target that is achievable, and is something that we have been achieving under the National Development Strategy 1, regardless of the fact that the economy was facing, under the National Development Strategy 1, we faced exogenous factors. First, we faced COVID, then second, we faced Cyclone Idai, but regardless of that, we're recording positive economic growth rates, and this year alone, the projection is that the economy is going to grow by 5%. And under the National Development Strategy 1, there are several years that we were surpassing the sub-Saharan Africa economic growth rates, meaning to say we were doing well. So now in this budget, it is actually a vehicle towards the implementation of the National Development Strategy 2, and 5%. It is actually achievable with what we have laid as the foundation under the National Development Strategy 1. We've laid the foundation. Now we are building towards achieving the upper middle class economy by 2030.
Mm-hmm. Of course, you talk about the GDP and the per capita. We just want to know, where are we right now at this point? Of course, we had a midterm budget review talking about per capita income. Maybe Zimbabweans want to know, where are we in terms of our per capita income?
We are currently the lower middle income. We're in the lower middle income bracket, because remember, these are the measures by the World Bank. So we are targeting to be an upper middle class economy by 2030, and it is something that is achievable, because already we are not a low income country. We are in a lower middle income, but the target is to become an upper middle income that is measured in the GDP per capita by 2030.
So yes, you spoke about the inflation target, which was about 12.5. So how have we fared so far in your own understanding or observation of how the economy has performed?
I think the economy has performed fairly well for the past about 14 months, since September 2024, when measures were taken to stabilize the exchange rate. Remember, there's a period where we moved from one ZiG currency to, one United States dollar currency to around 16 to 1:24, and that was problematic because it was causing inflation. So our inflation was mainly driven by the exchange rate. It was an exchange rate driven inflation. So since we have realized, since we have achieved stability under the ZiG currency, we've seen the inflation coming down, and it is the rate that is coming down, not the prices that are coming down, but the rate at which the prices are increasing is the one that is slowing down, because of the measures that were taken by the central bank through the Monetary Policy Committee, as well as the financial, as well as the treasury. The tight monetary policy has worked well. So that has I assisted the economy in slowing down the rate of inflation, and we are moving in the right direction, because a low rate of inflation is important to an economy, be it at household level or at firms level or industry level, because it brings that predictability. So it helps those that are into the industry, the captains of industry, at household level, to plan. You can easily plan ahead without fearing that the cost may move due to inflation. So the low and stable of inflation that you are moving towards, it's critical in order to support the planning and the implementation of government strategies as well as industry strategy as we move into the National Development Strategy 2 and the national budget that is going to be implemented today by the Honourable Minister.
It is good that we throw these figures around, interesting statistics that you are talking about. But what I want to understand is, why are the prices of our local commodities not reflective of this kind of development?
I think the prices, if you move around the retail sectors, you realize that the prices have not been going up in terms of the price rates for the past 12 months compared to what we were experiencing under the RTGS regime, because stability has been brought through the introduction of ZIG. And some prices, we've got multiple pricing systems that we have in our retail outlets. So some prices, we base our price on United States dollars, the foreign currency to be specific, as well as the local currency. And the rate at which the prices have been increasing it is actually slowing down, which is the rate of inflation that I'm alluding to, that it is actually coming down. So it is actually reflected in the prices that we are getting from the retail outlets as well as the wholesale businesses. Prices have not been increasing since September 2024. Actually, they've been increasing, but at a very, very slow rate.
Okay, thank you. But I also want to understand, maybe coming back to today's budget allocation, I want to understand what policies are there or have been put in place to ensure fiscal discipline and sustainability.
I think during the budget strategic paper that was presented by the Minister of Finance and the engagement that he has been doing as he was moving around, he was alluding to the deficit ceiling, where he was saying they are going to be disciplined enough to keep a budget of a deficit of 3% of the GDP for the 2026 budget. This is important because it doesn't lead to the creation of new debts. And at the same time, there is a deliberate approach by the Minister of Finance that we have seen it over time, that is actually avoiding borrowing from central bank, which we call monetization of the fiscal policy. That has been slowed down, and it's slowly being moved away, because it creates debts for the government itself when it finances its deficit through borrowing through the central bank. And there is also a deliberate movement by the Treasury in order to limit the guarantees, especially for the SOEs when they borrow to finance their activities. That is important because it helps in maintaining or minimizing the debt that the government would incur. And at the same time, we've seen that under the National Development Strategy 1 and the budgets that were presented under the National Development Strategy 1, and how the Treasury was rolling it out, there was sort of expenditure control by the government, but we expect to see more in terms of expenditure control, especially in terms of the recurrent expenditures movement around the country or out of the country by ministry officials and the likes, limiting the numbers and make sure that whatever that is allocated when they move around is specifically for the benefit of the economy, not just going there and live in luxury hotels. We have seen a deliberate action by that. And all in all, there is need for effective and efficient debt management and risk management from the Treasury.
Okay, is this not just in principle? Is this been put in practice? Do you have practical examples where we have seen government implementing these austerity measures or trying to cut on the expenditure?
Yes, movement out of the country have been reduced for quite some time now. Under a certain regime, under the previous regime, you find that when an executive was to go for a national duty.
And as you're speaking there, unfortunately we have to stop you, but we're seeing the Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion, Professor Mtuli, together with the Deputy Minister, Honorable Mnangagwa. There, of course, is the man that everyone is waiting for, and the members of Parliament are all ready. Now, let's get to see the head of state and government and commander-in-chief of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, His Excellency President Emmerson Adambudzo Mnangagwa. As you can see your visuals, the Boulevard Road constructed by the Second Republic. What a beauty. And currently we are seeing the Vice President, Dr. Chiwenga, now entering into the Parliament building as we anticipate the presentation of the 2026 national budget. Yes, that is the beauty of Zimbabwe, the road rehabilitation that is constantly talked about. There you can see, there you can tell His Excellency slowly approaching the new Parliament building in Mount Upton, which of course is one of the mega projects that was concluded by the Second Republic in a bid to improve the infrastructure in Zimbabwe. And all these senior government officials, including the Minister of Defense, Obam Chinguri, there you see some of the senior government officials, they are all ready for the presentation of the 2026 national budget. His Excellency will be arriving shortly at the new Parliament building, and of course we will hear what the budget is all about, what are the priority areas. And remember that this budget is coming at the backdrop of the NDS2 being launched earlier on by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Dr. Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. We are with our guest, an economic analyst, Mr. Mkove, who is helping us to break down what the budget should do, what has been done, and where are we in terms of going forward, for us to understand the key priority areas where we need to have discipline, like you were saying, in terms of what the government has done to reduce some of the expenditures, and also some of the priority areas that this budget is most likely going to be taken to. Mr. Mkove, we have just said His Excellency is slowly approaching, and you are talking briefly about what the government has done to reduce expenditure. You can go on as you are anticipating the arrival of the President.
Yes, so the major example that I was giving in terms of reduction in terms of unnecessary expenditure was the reduction in number of foreign trips by government officials, and the reduction of the contingents that are going for foreign trips by the government.
And this is the trajectory that we need to take as a country for us to realize discipline?
That is important, because remember, in terms of allocations, there is a recurrent allocation that is done by the Honorable Minister of Finance, and there is the capital expenditure that is done by the Minister of Current Affairs. So we need to see the bigger percentage of the government expenditure going towards capital expenditure rather than a recurrent expenditure, because it makes, or it creates the foundation for the economy for it to develop. We need to see allocations towards innovation and research and development. We need to see more allocations towards agriculture, towards other sectors that are productive, towards infrastructure development, because it creates the supply side of the economy, which is very important, which makes it flexible for the demand side policies to be used in order for us to boost economic growth. Because without a huge supply side of the economy, we will not be able to use monetary policy and the fiscal policy to achieve the economic growth. So it is important that we support the supply side growth, so that we create enough capacity for the economy to come up with policies in order for us to realize the growth targets that we have under the National Development Strategy 2, which is an average of 5% per annum.
And the man who just launched the National Development Strategy 2, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Dr. Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, now has arrived at the new Parliament building, where you can tell all those pictures from the inside. Everything is set. The members of Parliament are ready. The ministers themselves, they have come in their numbers today to get to understand what exactly is the priority that will be presented in that budget. And as we are speaking, His Excellency arrived. His deputy is currently in the House, Dr. Chiwenga, who of course was also at the State House during the launch of the National Development Strategy number 2. Members of the 4th Estate, very ready as they always do. And there you have it, Professor Mthuli Ncube welcoming the President himself, who is now walking towards the entering of the new Parliament building, being accompanied there by the Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Honorable Ziyambi, as the entourage of His Excellency is moving towards the new Parliament building. Quite an important day when it comes to how 2026 will economically be shaped. As you see, all senior government officials, all the highest offices today are at the new Parliament building in Mount Upton, a building, of course, which is a result of the government policies, budgetary policies that were introduced back then in a bid to try and improve the infrastructure in Zimbabwe. And this Parliament is one of those milestone achievement. And now, as you can get to see, His Excellency was just entering the House, and the members of Parliament who have come are filling the House to full capacity as they anticipate Professor Mthuli Ncube to be giving us that, of course, budget for 2026. But before we get back to the new Parliament building, there, of course, there have been voices that we have been recorded earlier on, try and find out what exactly do they think in as far as the new budget is concerned. Let's hear Bosisa Moyo speaking.
Last couple of months, we've seen exchange rate stability. We've seen the premium on the parallel market remaining fairly low, removing what has been arbitrage opportunities in the pricing of commodities in local and foreign currency. So that's brought stability, and a relook at business models as well, how business is done, so that we go back to business, to efficiencies, to margins, and the like. So we're going back to competition, competitiveness, and issues of that nature because of the stability that we've been seeing in the economy in the last couple of months, and it looks like that stability is remaining, and the governor is fairly resolute, is resolute in maintaining a stable macroeconomic environment, which for a long time had plagued the business and investment climate in Zimbabwe. So we expect it to continue in that trajectory. We don't have a reason to believe otherwise. Like I say, if the governor and the Monetary Policy Committee and Ministry of Finance are unanimous in maintaining a regime or a framework of stability, predictability, and general clarity in terms of pronouncements, no wild swings, no major shifts and changes. We haven't seen that in a while. So this is very promising. It means that people can start to rebuild, and we are seeing that in some sectors because of that stability. Stability is a good catalyst for growth and for expansion. Government also has begun the ease and cost of doing business initiative, which has been quite welcome and very necessary for competitiveness, for export competitiveness. So we are looking for a continuation of those kinds of efforts, and I know the Minister of Finance in particular has been very adamant to say sectors. Let's look at sector by sector. Let's look at what can be removed at the stroke of a pen, things that we can decide today, and let's get them done. And then there's obviously need for alignment at institutional level, so that the pronouncements are complemented by efforts lower down, and you see those translating into an actual change in cost structures and in efficiencies. And so these are positive things for the manufacturing sector, for productive sectors, the real sector, if we can call it that. So we can continue to look in that direction and continue.
Yes, here we are seeing the president there taking getting into the Parliament building, and is ushered by the Speaker of Parliament, Honorable Mdenda there, and a standing ovation for him. And yes, being introduced in the studio as we look forward to today's budget presentation by the Minister of Finance. And now the prayer is seated and signals probably the start of today's proceedings. And of course, you were talking before we crossed over to the studio. You were talking about some of the policies that are feeding into today's budget to ensure that there's fiscal discipline and sustainability. Can you we want you to take us through the budget formulation process. Okay, well, at this moment, let's just follow precedence.
I'm Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, to our National Assembly, and to our Parliament of Zimbabwe. Honorable Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion.
Mr. Speaker, Sections 1 and 2 of Section 305 of the Constitution as read in subsection 1 of section 28 of the Public Affairs Management Act, paragraph M of section 2.1 of the Public Affairs Management General Amendment Regulations of 2021, number 1, published in Statutory Instrument 127A of 2021, provides that every year the Minister responsible for Finance must present to the National Assembly a statement of the estimated revenues and expenditures of the government in the next financial year. In compliance with these provisions, Mr. Speaker said, I therefore move that leave be granted to present a statement of the estimated revenues and expenditures of the Republic of Zimbabwe for the 2026 financial year and make provisions for matters ancillary and incidental to this purpose. By way of introduction, Mr. Speaker, let me begin by acknowledging the leadership and guidance
Question before the House, the motion Honorable Minister, you may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Let me begin by acknowledging the leadership and guidance of His Excellency, from His Excellency's President, Dr. E.G. Mnangagwa, in formulating this budget. I also want to thank our two Vice Presidents, Dr. C.G. James Wenga and Dr. K.C.G. Mohabi, and my colleague, comrades and ministers for their support, which was helpful in shaping the proposed 2026 national budget. Last but not least, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank yourself, the fellow committees, the fellow committee chairs, the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee especially, the members of this august House and Senate, and business executives, individuals, professionals, representatives of social groups, civil society, development partners, and many other stakeholders who made valuable suggestions and input during the formation of this budget. The various inputs from all the stakeholders were instrumental in shaping the 2026 national budget, making it the people's budget as it reflects the aspirations of the people of Zimbabwe. Mr. Speaker, I will now turn to the gist of the budget itself. The 2026 national budget is setting the stage for the second five-year national development strategy, NDS2, which covers the period 2026 to 2030, which is integral to Vision 2010. This budget has been crafted under the theme enhancing drivers of economic growth and transformation towards Vision 2030. The 2026 national budget is therefore an implementation tool for NDS2, which, by the way, was launched late this morning by His Excellency the State House. Members of Parliament will receive copies, and the story will also be translated into all our nationally recognized languages, as usual. Fiscal consolidation efforts are beginning to pay off handsomely. Judicious implementation of prudent fiscal policies essentially expenditure alignment and cash budgeting, coupled with complementary budgetary policy, has now anchored inflation expectations, underpinning macroeconomic stability over the past 12 months. As alluded by Professor Kenneth Rogoff, who is a professor of public policy at Harvard, professor of economics and public policy, I quote, "Sound fiscal management is the foundation for economic resilience and transformation," close quote. This insight underscores the critical importance to maintain fiscal discipline as we navigate the path towards sustainable and inclusive growth.
The 2026 national budget, therefore, seeks to balance between expanding on the gains of NDS 1 while safeguarding fiscal sustainability, underscoring government's commitment to promoting durable and enduring macroeconomic stability, characterized by low and stable ZIG inflation. Mr. Speaker, I now want to turn to global economic developments, focusing on growth specifically. Global growth is projected to moderate from 3.3% in 2024 to 3.2% in 2025 and to 3.1% in 2026, reflecting obviously slower growth and heightened trade uncertainty and geopolitical tensions. I do have some slides on the screen. If you look up, I hope it's visible to all, you can see a few countries up there, advanced economies, United States, Euro, Germany, China, India, to mention a few, UK, and you can see the growth rates, where India is leading the pack with a growth rate of over 6%, followed by China, just over 4%. The sub-Saharan Africa region is expected to register growth of 4.1%, both in 2024 and 2025, before edging up to 4.4% in 2026. On the other hand, economic growth in the SADC region, which is our region, is projected to improve from 2.6% in 2024 to 2.9% in 2025 and to 3% in 2026. Again, you can see the slide up there showing various countries from the SADC region, and Zimbabwe, I think they skipped the other slide, showing a growth of 6.6% in 2026, in 2025 rather, and then 5% in 2026. Strong growth indeed, Mr. Speaker said. While this marks a moderate recovery, growth remains softer than expected due to persistent global headwinds, weak external demand, and energy deficits that are afflicting a few countries, and also is due to financing constraints. What I have up there, Mr. Speaker, is a chart showing a global inflation which seems to be headed downward. This is positive. It may mean that global interest rates beyond 26 will come down, making it cheaper for us to access loans globally. A comment on international commodity prices. Following several years of volatility, global economic prices are generally expected to move sideways, if not slightly decline. This is in both 2025 and 2026. But I must make an exception in the sense that gold, which is silver, the precious metals are faring better than, in fact, they're doing very well compared to basic metals. You can see the chart, therefore, precious metals are streaking upwards exponentially. But the prior chart, which was showing the oil price, was curving downwards, which is good for us since we're a net oil importer. Now, let me turn to the domestic economy, the Zimbabwe economy. Mr. Speaker said, the domestic economy exhibited strong performance during the first half of the year, which is estimated to have grown by 8.1%. You can see in the first quarter of the second bar from your right, Q1, the economy grew at 5.1%. In the second quarter, which is the last bar on your right, the economy grew at 11.04%. The average is 8.1%, so strong growth indeed. The domestic economy is therefore now projected to achieve a growth rate of 6.6% in 2025, as I've already mentioned. This revised projection is primarily on account of strong recovery in agriculture and other sectors such as mining, but all sectors are doing well. They are all in positive territory, Mr. Speaker. There's a chart with all manner of figures up there showing the growth rates of various sectors. You can see agriculture growing at 24% this year, and then information and communication growing at 12.5%. Those are the sort of star performers, followed by mining and quarrying 7.3% and so forth. Overall growth 6.6%. Following the national accounts revaluation exercise by Zimstat, nominal GDP in 2025 is projected at $52.4 billion US dollars, resulting in a gross national income per capita, or GNI per capita, of $3,200 US dollars per person per year. In 2026, economic growth is projected at 5%, underpinned by the following assumptions. One, expected normal to above normal rainfall with irrigated cropping expected to boost the performance of the agricultural sector. Two, currency and exchange rate and price stability. A prudent fiscal policy and tight monetary policy will anchor the currency and the exchange rate and inflation stability. Three, focusing on steady international mineral commodity prices. Most commodity prices are expected to moderate, except for gold prices. Low fuel prices will reduce the domestic cost of production, while higher prices for gold will promote further mining sector growth, increasing foreign currency inflows. And finally, on the ease of doing business, Mr. Speaker said, the ongoing review and rationalization of the various licenses, fees and charges is expected to continue, with the overall impact of lowering domestic costs of production and doing business and improving national and global competitiveness for our local products. Let me turn to inflation development, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, inflation developments in 2025 reflect the cumulative positive impact of prudent fiscal policy, sustained tight monetary policy, and proactive money supply growth management by the central bank, the RBZ. In terms of inflation, month-on-month ZIG inflation was minus 0.4%, while annual inflation was at 32.7% in the month of October 2025. The figure for November came out yesterday, Mr. Speaker, sir. Month-on-month, ZIG inflation is at about 0.2%, and then year-on-year, ZIG inflation is at 19%. So I'm confident, Mr. Speaker, sir, that before year end, you will see an inflation level of closer to 10% and single-digit inflation in the first quarter of next year. And if this happens, Mr. Speaker, say, that will be the first time we've achieved that kind of single-digit domestic inflation since 1997. In 2026, the ZIG annual inflation, let me take that again, the US dollar month-on-month inflation and year-on-year inflation was 0.3% and 13% respectively in the month of October 2025. In 2026, the ZIG annual inflation rate is projected to decline to single-digit levels, reflecting anchored inflation expectations, currency and exchange rate volatility, as well as strengthened monetary fiscal policy coordination. Let me turn to the external sector, Mr. Speaker, sir. What I have there is a chart of the exchange rates. You can see that spread between the parallel and the official rate has remained steady, within the 20% band. That has helped us a lot in managing activities in the parallel market, which have caused us some challenges in the past. Let me turn to the external sector. Mr. Speaker said, during 2025, the country's external position improved as a result of significant foreign currency inflows, estimated at 12 billion during the first 9 months of the year of 2025. During the same period, exports and imports amounted to 7 billion US dollars. There's a table there showing the various figures. As a result, the current account surplus was at 961.3 million US dollars during the first 6 months of 2025. This is compared to 31 million recorded during the same period last year, 2024. A massive increase in the current account surplus. To year end, the current account surplus is projected at $1.3 billion US. This surplus is expected to further increase to $1.4 billion in 2026, underpinned by sustained export growth and strong diaspora inflows. Let me say a word about the diaspora inflows or remittances. Diaspora inflows, Mr. Speaker, have remained strong in the main, reflecting global economic strength and recovery across major regions of the world, all major regions of the world. Diaspora remittances are projected to surpass $2.7 billion US in 2025 and will be estimated to be at $2.8 billion US in 2026. Again, there's a chart showing the growth in remittances all the way from 922 million in 2019 and with the projection of 2.7 billion in 2025 and 2.8 billion in 2026 up on the charts. Let me turn to public finance developments, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, revenue collections during the period January to September 2025 amounted to 156.3 billion ZiG, while expenditures were at 152.5 billion ZiG, with the fiscal framework right up there. On a cash basis, revenues which exceeded expenditures by 3.7 billion were utilized for partial repayment of some of the outstanding government loan obligations. In US dollar terms, revenue collections amounted to 5.9 billion against expenditures of 5.7 billion US dollars. As at September 2025, various ministries, departments and agencies had utilized an average of 56% of their allocations. However, due to the actual exchange rate outturn of 26.7 ZiG to $1 US, compared to the assumed budget exchange rate of 36 ZiG to $1 US, which we used when we did the budget last year, actual average utilization stands at 75% across our various MDAs. What does the fiscal outlook look like to year end, Mr. Speaker? Cumulative revenue collections to year end are projected at 215.7 billion, or 7.96 billion, which is really close to 8 billion, Mr. Speaker. This is against expenditures of 219.46 billion ZiG, or 8.1 billion US dollars, resulting in a projected budget deficit of 3.8 billion ZiG, or 140.1 million US dollars, which is 0.3% of our gross domestic product, GDP. Coming to public debt, Mr. Speaker, the country's stock of public and publicly guaranteed debt was 622.3 billion ZiG, or 23.4 billion US dollars, which is about 44.7% of our gross domestic product, GDP, as of the end of September 2025. Let me turn to the 2026 national budget macro fiscal framework, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in 2026, government is targeting to collect revenues amounting to 288 billion ZiG, or 16.9% of GDP, or about 9.4 billion US dollars equivalent. The revenue envelope, coupled with the government's borrowing capacity, provides for an overall global expenditure amounting to 290 billion ZiG, or 9.5 billion US dollars, which translates to 17% of our GDP. The projected revenue collection and expenditure ceiling results in an almost balanced budget, with a small budget deficit of only 3.2 billion ZiG, or 105.9 million US dollars, or minus 0.2% of GDP, all within the static target of 3% of GDP, Mr. Speaker. A word about domestic partners who have supported us. Mr. Speaker, the country received development assistance amounting to 386.1 million during the period January to September 2025, against a target of $500 million US. Of course, we thank our development partners for these resources. In 2026, development assistance is projected at 350 million, a 30% drop from the 2025 projection, attributed to recent developments which have resulted in a global decrease in official development assistance flows. Let me turn to the strategic priorities for the 2026 national budget. Mr. Speaker, sir, the 2026 national budget is anchored on the 10 national priorities of the National Development Strategy 2, NDS 2, which are as follows: macroeconomic stability and financial sector deepening, inclusive growth and structural transformation, infrastructure development and housing, agriculture, food security, climate and environment. That's the fourth one. Fifth one, science, technology, digitization, innovation, and human capital development. Then job creation, youth entrepreneurship and development, creative industries and culture. Then social development, gender and social protection. 7, regional development and inclusivity through devolution and decentralization. That was number 8, by the way. 9, image building, international relations and trade. And finally, number 10, good governance, institution building, peace and security. During the budget consultations, the various ministries, departments and agencies submitted bids of over 828.5 billion ZiG, which is way above the available capacity of the economy, amounting to 253 billion ZiG. So the bids were almost 3.5 times what was available or what the economy could generate. And this is what is being distributed to our various ministries, departments and agencies. Up on the screen, you'll see the various distributions, but I'll go through each of them one by one because they are all aligned to the 10 pillars in NDS 2, which I've already mentioned. I must hasten to say, Mr. Speaker, that in the first half of any year, the revenue inflows are typically below the annual average run rate. In order to align expenditure with seasonality of the revenue collections, the budget will be executed on the basis of a conservative annual revenue projection of $9 billion in the first half of the year, with expenditure ceilings for votes calibrated to the typical in-year revenue pattern and reflected in the cash release plan. This will help ensure that expenditure remains fully financeable, that no new payment arrears are incurred, and that unbudgeted for expenditures are curtailed. Should revenue collections in the first half of the year exceed this seasonal baseline, expenditure ceilings will be accordingly be adjusted in the second half of the year in a transparent manner within the approved appropriations and in line with clearly communicated priorities. Let me turn to the 10 priority areas under NDS 2, which also drive the budget allocations. Mr. Speaker, the 2026 national budget seeks to consolidate and sustain macroeconomic stability beyond the near term. This really speaks to the pillar of macroeconomic stability and financial sector deepening. Turning to the pillar of inclusive economic growth and structural transformation, the focus of this budget is to sustain structural transformation through value addition and beneficiation, prioritizing job creation, expanding the digital economy, and embedding climate adaptation and resilience. Turning to industry within this pillar, in view of the manufacturing sector's strategic role in driving structural transformation, the government has set aside 459.8 million ZiG for the Ministry of Industry and Commerce to support tooling and working capital requirements of the industry, as well as for improvement of the policy environment. What I have up there, Mr. Speaker, says a chart which is an index of volume from the manufacturing sector. You can see it's been trending upwards, and we would like this to continue through this budget allocation to improve policy and to trigger certain incentives within the industrial sector. Turning to the mining sector, in support of sustainable mining development in 2026, a total of 789 million ZiG has been set aside for the Ministry of Mines and Mining Development in order to enhance its operations that serve to promote beneficiation and value addition. I now want to turn to the tourism sector while I'm on the issue of structural transformation. To support the growth trajectory in the tourism sector, a budget allocation of 339.4 million ZiG has been set aside to bolster the operations of the Ministry of Tourism and Hospitality. This will cement Zimbabwe as a destination of choice. Mr. Speaker said recently we were voted or chosen as the #1 destination by Forbes magazine. This we must sustain. And you can see, Mr. Speaker, say on the chart up there, the recovery in tourism, in domestic tourism, since 2020 has been a remarkable turnaround indeed. Let me turn to the pillar of agriculture, food security, climate and environment. Mr. Speaker, say the 2026 national budget supports the strengthening of food security, climate resilience and environmental protection as key to sustainable development. For agriculture specifically, the 2026 national budget has set aside 26.8 billion ZiG for the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development for the following programs and projects, among others, of course. Agriculture Productive Social Protection Scheme, which is the Fumvuza Interest Program, Rural Development 8.0 and industrialization, for irrigation development, for dam construction, livestock production, and procurement of strategic grain reserves. A word on climate change management, the Ministry of Environment, Climate and Wildlife has been allocated an amount of 510.2 million ZiG to implement climate change management programs and projects. I now turn to the pillar of job creation, youth entrepreneurship and development, and creative industry and culture. Mr. Speaker, sir, the government is seized with the task of growing the job market to absorb new entrants, as well as creating conditions for youth enterprise development and innovation. The 2026 national budget has set aside 1.7 billion ZiG for the Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Development and Vocation Training towards youth empowerment initiatives and programs, and for capitalization of the Empower Bank. Turning to sports, recreation, arts and culture. Under sports, recreation, arts and culture, the national budget has set aside 841.4 million ZiG for the Ministry of Sports, Recreation, Arts and Culture to support activities, including the completion of the outstanding works at the National Sports Stadium, as well as upgrading and construction of other sporting facilities, support the arts and cultural facilities across the country. I now turn to the pillar of social development, gender and social protection. Mr. Speaker said, the government seeks to build a just and inclusive society through investing in quality education and healthcare, among other essential services, in order to foster human capital development, social cohesion, and resilience against poverty and vulnerability. So looking at the health sector, within this pillar. An amount of 30.4 billion ZIG has been allocated to the Ministry of Health and Child Care through the 2026 national budget. This is meant to strengthen primary health care by improving access to quality health care, particularly in rural and underserved areas, and to develop health infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, there's wonderful progress in terms of renovating some of our infrastructure at the Parerenya group of hospitals. That's underway. And this budget allocation, Mr. Speaker, is in line with the Abuja target of 15% being allocated to the health sector, 15% of total revenue or total budget. Turning to primary and secondary education, the 2026 national budget has set aside 47.4 billion ZIG for the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education. This will go towards employment costs, provision of basic education, infrastructure upgrading and construction, and equipping schools, including those in disadvantaged areas, to ensure that all students have access to education facilities in accordance with international conventions. The picture up there is some equipment from the NMS Health Infrastructure Development Program, which saw us develop resulted in the development of the Harare South Health Facility and Runyararo Health Facility, and also the Calgary Park Health Facility. It's one of the programs that we're running under the Ministry of Health. I now turn to the issue of social protection. The 2026 national budget has set aside 12.7 billion ZIG for the Ministry of Public Service, Labour and Social Welfare to cushion the vulnerable with educational fees and medical assistance, as well as improving food security, among others. I now turn to the support we're giving to our veterans of the liberation struggle. The Ministry of Veterans of the Liberation Struggle Affairs has been allocated 1.1 billion ZIG to cover essential needs such as monthly gratuities, medical benefits, educational assistance, funeral grants, as well as for veterans empowerment programs, and ensuring continued support for this important constituency. Let me turn to the issue of women and gender equity promotion. The Ministry of Women's Affairs, Community, Small and Medium Enterprises has been allocated 1.1 billion ZIG towards the following, among other areas, of course: 152.3 million ZIG towards the capitalization of the Women's Microfinance Bank. And this is just the beginning. To 70.4 million ZIG for capitalization of the Women's Development Fund. 74.7 million for construction of safe markets for women and children. And finally, 152.3 million ZIG for capitalization of the Small to Medium Enterprises Development Corporation, SMEDCO. Let me turn to the pillar of infrastructure development and housing. Mr. Speaker, the 2026 national budget prioritizes investment in public infrastructure projects with the focus on high economic and high social returns, enhancing trade competitiveness and promoting digitization. Looking at the transport sector, in 2026 national budget, an allocation of 4.6 billion for the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure Development for the rehabilitation and upgrading of roads and upgrading of modern airports has been set aside. Some of the flagship projects include the completion of the Harare-Masingo By-Bridge Road and the upgrading of the Bulawayo-Victoria Falls Road. This is Manyame and Muchege bridges up on the screen, Mr. Speaker, so you can see there's progress everywhere. Let me mention the energy sector. The Minister of Energy and Power Development has been allocated 330.3 million ZiG to spearhead the implementation of strategic policy instruments and frameworks to guide energy planning and investment. Government will continue to promote investment in the energy sector with particular focus on electricity generation and distribution for both public and private sector, including triple Ps and also the net metering program. On water and sanitation, a total of 1.1 billion ZiG has been set aside to support water and sanitation projects and programs in 2026, with particular focus on Kunzwi and Gaishangani dams, as well as borehole drilling programs. That's a picture of the Gaishangani dam, and there's steady progress. When it comes to housing, the budget has set aside 948.9 million ZiG for the Ministry of National Housing and Social Amenities to enhance the legal and regulatory framework governing land use, housing delivery, and urban planning. These resources will also support investments in both off-site and on-site infrastructure, such as roads, water, sewage, electricity, which are critical enablers for all new housing projects across the country. I think that's the Wedza District Composite Office, which is one of the projects that is completed, basically. Turning to science, technology, digitalization, innovation, and human capital development, Mr. Speaker, the 2026 national budget has set aside 763.5 million ZiG for the Ministry of Information, Communication, Technology, Postal and Courier Services. This will enable the ministry to support and facilitate strategic investments in science, technology, digitization, innovation, and human capital development, which is critical in fostering a knowledge-driven, digitally enabled and technology-transformed economy. Looking at higher and tertiary education, innovation, science and technology, an amount of 10.3 billion ZiG has been set aside for the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, Innovation, Science and Technology Development in order to support our Education 5.0 agenda. You can see progress with innovation hubs in Chinhoyi and also at HIT, Harare Institute of Technology. Those are fully functional. These resources will capacitate institutions of higher learning, expand infrastructure requirements, and support innovation hubs, such as one you've seen, and agro-industrial parks in order to strengthen the country's innovation ecosystem. Turning to skills audit and development, the 2026 national budget has set aside resources amounting to 229 million ZiG to support the Ministry of Skills Audit and Development in its mandate to build a competitive, innovative, and adaptive workforce capable of driving Zimbabwe's industrialization, digitization, digital transformation, and inclusive growth. Let me turn to regional development and inclusivity through devolution and decentralization. Mr. Speaker, an allocation of 4.6 billion ZiG has been set aside for the Ministry of Local Government and Public Works for the refurbishment and construction of government buildings for disaster relief, as well as strengthening governance and oversight role of the lower tiers of government. In addition, in compliance with Section 264 and 301 of the Constitution, which requires an allocation of at least 5% of the revenue collections to the lower tiers of government, a total of 14.4 billion ZiG has been set aside for devolution and decentralization in 2026. Turning to good governance, institution building, peace and security, Mr. Speaker said, the 2026 budget, Mr. Speaker said, in 2026, government seeks to enhance effective governance processes to promote transparency and accountability, as well as creating a conducive environment for inclusive growth and development. Looking at peace and security specifically, the 2026 national budget has set aside 46.8 billion ZiG for the security sector, for hiring and training of personnel, provision of consumables and rations, construction and rehabilitation of staff accommodation, and procurement of operational and conditions of service vehicles. This also includes resources to capitalize the security sector strategic business units, including the implementation of the military salary concept, as well as a very successful program for landmine clearance. Turning to justice delivery, the Ministry of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs has been allocated 6.9 billion ZiG to enhance justice delivery and access, alignment and harmonization of legislation, advancing of decentralization of justice services to provinces and districts, and implementing the intellectual property policy. That's the judicial or commercial court. It's beautiful. On image building and international relations and trade, in line with the national thrust on image building, engagement and re-engagement, the 2026 national budget has set aside 3.9 billion for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade to promote the country's image as a credible investment destination while fostering beneficial partnerships that contribute to sustainable growth and development. Looking at information, publicity and broadcasting, I think that's the Osaka Expo, Mr. Speaker said we had a very popular stand and we won. Turning to information, publicity and broadcasting, an amount of 463.1 million ZiG has been set aside for the Ministry of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services to finance digital migration, transmission network upgrades, and capacity development programs for media institutions and practitioners. This is meant to accelerate digitization within the broadcasting and communication ecosystem through the continued rollout of the ZIM Digital Phase 2 program. I urge members of Parliament to visit Montrose Studios. It's very modern, it's digital. That's where all our indigenous languages are broadcast from, very modern, and want to replicate that at Pockets Hill and everywhere else. Turning to Parliament, as in our ultimate oversight institution for the executive, the 2026 national budget has set aside 3.1 billion ZiG for the Parliament of Zimbabwe to undertake its legislative and oversight role. This includes funding for operations, Constituency Development Fund, CDF, vehicle loan schemes, and other activities that will aid Parliament in the execution of its mandate. Parliament constituency information centres will also be funded in the 2026 national budget. I now turn to the Auditor General's office, Mr. Speaker, sir. In order to undertake its mandate, the Office of the Auditor General requires resources to meet its operational and capital expenditure requirements. In this regard, 764.4 million ZiG has been allocated to the Office of the Auditor General for the 2026 fiscal year. The resources will cater for employment costs, capacity building, digitization, as well as rehabilitation and upgrading of Barrows House building, which is their head office. I now turn to other independent institutions, Mr. Speaker, sir. For example, the Public Service Commission, the budget of 11.4 billion, Judicial Services Commission, 1.4 billion, Health Service Commission, 305.9 million, Office of the Attorney General, 304.9 million, Chiefs, Council of Chiefs, 200.3 million. This is all ZIG. Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, 256.4 million ZIG. The National Prosecuting Authority, NPA, 545.4 million ZIG. Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, ZAC, 248.1 million ZIG. Zimbabwe Electoral Commission at 514.8 million ZIG. Zimbabwe Gender Commission at 167.8 million ZIG. Zimbabwe Land Commission, a budget of 245.3 million ZIG. And finally, Zimbabwe Media Commission with a budget of allocation of 159.2 million ZIG. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to the matter of ease of doing business, looking at reforms towards the ease of doing business. Mr. Speaker, before I move on to revenue measures, let me take this opportunity to update the House on progress being made thus far, to review levies, fees, charges, in order to improve the environment for doing business. I'm happy to announce that Cabinet has so far approved reforms in the following 5 of 12 sectors. 1, the livestock, dairy and feedstock manufacturing. This was approved on the 5th of August this year. For the tourism sector, the approval was on the 26th of August. For the transport sector, approval was on the 9th of September. And for the wholesale and retail sectors, approval was on the 7th of October. And the energy sector approval was basically last week, which is in November. Some of the approved reforms will be gazetted through the finance bill for 2026, while others will be gazetted individually through statutory instruments and other legal reforms by the respective line ministries. So you will see the legal provisions coming through from various angles, but all focusing on the already announced reforms. Government's target is to complete the review of the outstanding 7 sectors by the end of the first quarter of 2026. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to revenue measures. Mr. Speaker, the 26 national budget revenue measures seek to consolidate the gains achieved under the National Development Strategy 1 and lay the foundation for transition to NDS 2. The proposed measures are targeted at supporting productive sectors, provide relief to taxpayers, and minimize avoidance and evasion, whilst ensuring fairness, efficiency, and simplicity in the tax system. I now present a summary of some of the revenue measures. The detail is in the detailed budget statement. Let's look at the issue of broadening the tax base. Royalty on gold. In order to ensure the mining sector contributes a fair share of revenue to the fiscus during periods of commodity price boom, as well as to eliminate arbitrage between categories of miners, I propose to harmonize and review the royalty structure of all gold producers in the following manner. Up on the screen, you can see that the royalty will now be linked to the price level or price category. So with a gold price per ounce of 0 to $1,200 US, the royalty is 3%. From 1,201 to 2,500, the royalty goes up to 5%. For 2,501 and above, the royalty is 10%. This will ensure that a government is able to share on the upside of any price increases. I now turn to an issue of enhancing efficiency in VAT collection, which is about enhancing taxation of e-commerce. Mr. Speaker, I propose to introduce a digital services withholding tax in lieu of existing VAT on imported services for payments made to offshore digital platforms, including e-hailing fees, online content charges, and satellite-based internet access fees. The tax will be withheld by paying agents. That includes financial institutions. I now turn to an issue of structural transformation, looking at value addition in the cotton sector. Consistent with ongoing improvements in local production capacity of fabrics, I propose to review and align the customs duty rate on selected polyester staples fibers with dyed woolen fabrics of cotton at a rate of 40%, plus $2.5 US dollars or $2.50 per kg in addition to the 40%. I now turn to the issue of manufacturing or production of gas cylinders, where again the country is making good progress, Mr. Speaker. In order to reduce the cost of producing gas cylinders, thereby stimulating local production, leveling the playing field between imported and locally manufactured products, I propose to remove customs duty on selected imported raw materials that include steel coils and plates. Let me turn to some tax relief measures, Mr. Speaker. Let me talk about the tax incentives for a 24-hour economy notion. To support the transition towards a 24-hour production economy, I propose to introduce targeted tax incentives for firms operating extended production or service hours in the manufacturing sector, where such operators demonstrate incremental production and revenue thereof. Discussions are ongoing with various stakeholders, relevant stakeholders, on the modalities of the proposed framework, targeting, among others, the following incentives. 1, additional tax deductions on selected expenditure incurred during extended hours or extended operational hours. 2, accelerated wear and tear allowances on plant and equipment used in round-the-clock production cycles. And finally, 3, priority access to import duty concessions for firms that demonstrate capacity for expansion and productivity improvements under the 24-hour economy model. I now turn to the review of the Intermediated Money Transfer Tax, IMTT, otherwise known as the 2% tax. Mr. Speaker, sir, consistent with government commitment to supporting business growth and maintaining fiscal stability, I propose to review the IMTT framework as follows. 1, to reduce IMTT rate on ZiG-denominated transactions from 2% to 1.5% in order to promote use of local currency and lower transactions costs. IMTT on foreign currency transactions will be maintained at 2% for now. Number 2, I propose to designate IMTT as a tax-deductible expense for purposes of corporate income tax and computation. And this applies to both ZiG and US dollar corporate income. Number 3, we want to expand the definition of financial institution for purposes of IMTT to include microfinance institutions. Let me turn to a compensatory issue. Mr. Speaker, sir, this review in IMTT will result in an immediate drop in revenues for the government. So as a compensatory mechanism, I propose that we introduce a small concession to partially compensate for this foregone revenue by increasing VAT by only 0.5% effective from 1 January 2026. I now turn to an issue of tax deductibility of interest, deposit interest for commercial banks. Mr. Speaker said, in order to facilitate mobilization and retention of bank deposits, I propose to allow a tax-deductible expenditure, interest expense payable on such deposits made with financial institutions, subject to appropriate safeguards to prevent abuse, including transfer pricing rules, thin capitalization principles, and anti-base erosion measures. Let me turn to a new business sector, Mr. Speaker said, called the Business and Knowledge Process Outsourcing Sector, BPO and KPO. Mr. Speaker said, the government recognizes the surge in local investments towards establishment of business and knowledge process outsourcing, BKPO, services, where specialist services are provided to offshore consumers with the potential to significantly contribute towards employment creation, foreign currency generation, and investment in appropriate infrastructure. In order to support investment in the industry, I propose to introduce the following incentives. Suspension of customs duty on the importation of specialized equipment by qualifying business and knowledge process outsourcing operators. I propose a flat 15% corporate income tax rate in line with the domestic minimum top-up tax provisions, subject to meeting the prescribed conditions. I also propose a capital allowance deduction of 100% in the first year of use or operation. I also propose an exemption from non-resident tax on dividends. I also propose a tax credit of $1,500 per employee per annum on corporate income tax as prescribed under the Youth Employment Tax Incentive YETI framework. So if they employ youthful employees, by a strict definition, there's a tax credit, Mr. Speaker say, for those who do so. Finally, a flat tax rate of 15% on skilled, essential expatriate staff. I now turn to, again, a new issue regarding the liberalization of the gold sector. In order to modernize the gold trade legal framework and support the use of gold as an alternative investment asset, I propose to expand the categories of persons who may lawfully possess or deal in gold to include authorized dealers, National Gold Refinery, and individuals in possession of certified gold bars acquired through these institutions or these entities. Furthermore, I propose that holders of certified gold bars subject to the Exchange Control Act be allowed to pledge, exchange, sell, barter, or otherwise transact in these gold bars. This reform will facilitate the introduction of regulated, traceable investment-grade gold products, thereby offering citizens a secure store of value. I now move to the conclusion of the budget speech, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the year 2025 marks the end of the NDS 1 implementation period, with indications that most of the NDS 1 targets were achieved. One critical milestone achieved during the NDS 1 period is the introduction of the local currency, the ZiG, on the 4th of April last year, 2024, which has restored price stability and macroeconomic stability. This was achieved through concerted efforts by both the monetary and fiscal authorities. It is very important to stay the course, therefore, in order to sustain the stability which is critical for the attainment of Vision 2030. This is achievable if all stakeholders have a unit of purpose of economic transformation so that growth is shared through the creation of decent jobs with decent incomes, while vulnerable members of the society are equally taken care of through transparent and credible social protection programs. As the Nobel laureate in economics, Joseph Stiglitz, asserts that sustainable economic growth and shared prosperity requires us to build institutions and policies that are inclusive, resilient, and forward-looking. This national budget embodies that vision, anchoring our progress on fiscal discipline, infrastructure investment, and social empowerment to transform our economy towards achieving the aspirations of Vision 2030 of an upper middle income economy. Mr. Speaker, I finally commend this 2026 national budget to this august House in compliance with the law, and it is accompanied by the following documents: the 2026 national budget statement, the estimates of expenditure, others known as the Blue Book, the Finance Bill, the Appropriation Bill, a report to Parliament on public debt, the 2026 Zimbabwe Infrastructure Investment Programme, the 2026 Citizens Budget, the Expenditure Arrears Clearance Strategy, which is Domestic Arrears Clearance Strategy, the 2024 Audit Implementation Metrics. For this one, I want Parliament to take note of what government has done in response to queries and issues raised by the Auditor General in the year of 2024. Finally, the 2026 National Gender Budget Statement is also included. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, tinotenda siyabonga twalumbwa.
The 2026 National Budget presentation right here in Mount Ebden at the new Parliament building, being presented by the Ministry of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion, Professor Thuli Ncube. Taona.
Yes, it was definitely an enlightening moment right there as we saw what we're looking forward in 2026. And one of the highlights is what I can say is being focused on its economic growth, which goes in line with the NDS2, National Development Strategy 2, which was launched today by the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, His Excellency Comrade Edie Mnangagwa.
Indeed, has started off by giving the performance for 2025 national budget, and we did hear that several projects were being carried all over across the country. That includes road infrastructure development, the Harare Masvingo Bay Bridge Road, of course, talk of expansion of schools, and we got to see that the tourism sector also got major priority in terms of the budget allocation for 2026, given the fact that our Zimbabwean tourism was marked in the Forbes magazine that Zimbabwe is one of the best destinations, a must destination to visit. Also, the health sector also got prioritization, looking at the Parenyatwa group of hospitals that they need renovations, talk of adequate medical facilities for the people of Zimbabwe.
Indeed, and one of the things that we should all notice, Zimbabweans, is that this budget affects every single Zimbabwean, from one who has just finished college to one who is about to retire, as all of these things affect us as citizens. Let's look at things like infrastructure development, which Rumbi just highlighted right there. I will talk about infrastructure development. We're also going to note all the companies that are going to be involved in those projects, not forgetting all those people who are going to be employed through that, and talk about water sanitation and so forth, getting 1.1 billion ZEG in the budget as well, which is definitely going to be a benefit for all Zimbabweans. But anyways, thank you so much for just staying tuned. We're going to just cross over back into the Parliament and follow the proceedings.
Sorry. Leader.
Thank you.
Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that debate to now.
Thank you. It has been moved that the House do now, the debate do now adjourn Is there any debate? I put the question that the debate be now adjourned. Those of that opinion will say aye. Those of the contrary opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed, and that the debate is now adjourned to what day, Honourable Leader of Government Business?
To Tuesday, the 9th of December, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for your attendance. You may now leave.
All right, we are still right here in Mount Hebden at the new Parliament building, where there is the 2026 National Budget presentation. And one of the key highlights is the issue to do with the ease of doing business. And of course, Honorable Professor Mthuli Ncube mentioned that there is need to reveal the levies that are there, licensing in several sectors of the economy, to ensure that people will be able to do business in the right manner. Looking at the small to medium enterprises in Zimbabwe, they constitute almost about 90% of businesses in Zimbabwe. And it's very, very important for the people of Zimbabwe to ensure that they do business without any hassles and any complications. Tawona.
Indeed, and as you just heard right there, when we talk about these levies and licenses being reviewed as well, it is not, and right now we can actually see the President, His Excellency Comrade E.D. Mnangagwa, just leaving right now. But as we were just discussing, you know, when we talk about the review of licenses, when we talk about the review of levies and so forth, it does not only open doors for businesses that are already existing, but also businesses that seek to start off, businesses that are looking forward to being starting in the country, as it would mean that more opportunities are being provided, more doors are being opened.
Yeah, we also get to see that there is the departure of the Vice President as well. That is Comrade CDG and Chiwenga departing. We already saw the President for the Republic of Zimbabwe, Comrade Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, departing. The budget has just ended, and it's something that is great to see. All sectors being involved. Look at the authorities of the highest level being there, taking part, just being able to see it and listen, getting to see people's emotions. Are they happy? Are they not happy? What is being prioritized? We saw parliamentarians in there. We also saw people from the financial sector, experts that are there. This really shows that even before the budget was presented, the 2026 national budget, there were several consultations. There were pre-budget seminars that were made before, with people talking about how they would want to see this 2026 national budget being met.
Indeed, and also talking about all sectors and industries and all arms of the government are being involved in the budget, being included in the budget. Let us not forget one of the new ministries, the Ministry of Skills Audit and Development, which seeks to just ensure that we have a skilled people which drive us towards the attainment of Vision 2030. And when we also talk about the attainment of Vision 2030, let us not forget the National Development Strategy 2, which was launched today by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Comrade Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa. And you know, as I was saying, looking at the skills and development sector, that would mean that if it's getting funding, it's getting a portion of the budget, means that we now have skilled people that will lead us towards economic growth. And still on that part as well, let us not forget the education sector. Where can we go without education, Ruby?
Definitely, we wouldn't be anywhere without education. Education is the key to success. Now, when we're looking at, we're talking about economic growth, and one of the most interesting things is that this year's theme is looking at enhancing the drivers of economic growth and transformation towards Vision 2030. Now, you mentioned earlier on that this marked the launch of National Development Strategy 2 that is going to run from 2026 to the year 2030. Now, when these these enhancers of economic growth and transformation are really looked deeply into, prioritizing each and every aspect. We will indeed build Zimbabwe brick by brick. This is the Zimbabwe that we would want to see, and of course with leaving no one and no place behind. We also heard that even the youth, the Ministry of Youth was actually prioritized as well to ensure that youth programs will continue, as well as sports and recreation. We are going to see refurbishment and renovations of sporting facilities, stadiums. As we saw, the National Sports Stadium is actually being renovated as we speak.
Yes, and just looking at what everything we have just highlighted right there, we can all safely and confidently agree that this is indeed an inclusive budget. Because you might say, well, I'm just I'm not yet in the state of trying to run a business. Let us look at the Ministry of Youth investing in vocational training centers as well. That would mean that one might not be starting a business right now, one might not be the most academically gifted, but they are still part of the budget. Let us look at the sports, as my co-presenter Rumbi was just mentioning right there. That would mean that talent is also being recognized in the budget, because you are capable of actually doing it. So you have been included in the budget as well to make sure that you're capacitated to also do what you can do, which in turn definitely benefits us as a country as we appear even on the global stages, even in the sports world, the academic fraternity and so forth.
And also looking at improving the livelihoods of the people, which is another aspect that is running with this theme in the budget that was presented at Tawana. We did hear that there is going to be prioritization of sanitation, making sure that people get water that is clean, apart from just health facilities that they get. So we will continue with this conversation and analysis. And of course, right now we take you back to our Pocket studios, where we have presenters there on standby.
Current Affairs, your window into Zimbabwe, where the world meets Zimbabwe. Join us for unscripted live events, state functions, parliamentary debates, independence, heroes and defense forces celebrations, and many more. We are committed to telling the unbiased Zimbabwean story, giving you unfettered access to the latest news and developments shaping our nation. From the streets of Harare to the world stage, Current Affairs brings you the stories that matter most to Zimbabweans. Don't miss out on our in-depth coverage of local and international issues, expert analysis, and thought-provoking discussions. ZBC Current Affairs, where the world meets Zimbabwe. Stay informed, stay engaged, and stay ahead.
Yes, viewers, the budget has been presented and we are still with our economist, Mr. Titus Mukube, to give us an analysis of today's budget allocation. Titus, your reaction to the budget presentation?
I think the budget presentation was in line with most economic agents' expectations. A transition from National Development Strategy 1 to National Development Strategy 2. And as the Minister was presenting the budget, he was alluding to the successes under the National Development Strategy 1, where he was actually emphasizing that we recorded positive economic growth rates. And in this first part of the presentation, he actually explained the global economic outlook, where he also linked it to the Zimbabwe economic outlook, where we are actually performing above the global economic statistics. And at the same time, he also alluded to the issues to do with the current account, which is in surplus. As an economy, we are generating enough foreign currency. And one thing that I really liked about our external economy was the growth that we are seeing in terms of the diaspora remittances that are coming to Zimbabwe, which are projected to grow to about 2.8 billion from 2.7 billion projection of 2025. This is showing confidence that our diaspora community is having on our local economy. And this is one of the biggest exports that we have made as an economy, is the export of skills. And we are now starting to benefit from that. And another highlight that we have seen from the budget presentation this time was a critical link of the 10 pillars under the National Development Strategy 2 to the budget actual allocations that were being done by Honorable Minister today. All the allocations, he was linking them to the pillars, 10 pillars under the National Development Strategy 2, which are the drivers of economic growth, which is something that is positive. And in terms of ease of doing business, he alluded to the fact that he has come up with, the cabinet is actually approved about 5 of the 10 sectors in terms of ease of doing business, and the remaining 7 the reforms will be communicated before the end of the second half of 2026. And in terms of the revenues, you find that the government didn't really burden the productive sector as well as the households this time around with increases in terms of the revenue streams of the government. Yes, they've broadened the revenue streams, but without necessarily overburdening the economic agents. There's been a cry, especially from those in the industry sector, those at firm level and industry level, that there should be a reduction in the IMMT tax. And we have seen that the government has revised it from 2% to 1.5%, which is a welcome development to them. Of course, they were crying for 1% IMMT tax, but I think it's a step in the right direction in terms of actually assisting industry in reducing the cost of production. And another highlight is that the adjustment, a proposed adjustment on VAT by 0.5%. The justification that is coming from Honorable Minister is that the reduction in IMMT tax will significantly reduce the revenues of the government. So that needs to be compensated by an increase in the VAT by 0.5%. He had actually hinted it in Blawayo in one of the consultative meetings that he had when he was preparing the budget, the consultation meetings towards the budget proposal, that if there's going to be an adjustment in the IMMT tax, there is going to be also an adjustment in terms of VAT. So that is a compensatory effect. We will analyze further on how that may affect in terms of consumption, because it's sort of a burden that is being passed from the producers to those in the consumption. But another thing to take note of is that IMMT is proposed to be reduced only on ZIG transfers, not on United States transfers. And this is meant to boost the use of our domestic currency as we try by all means to increase the levels of transaction that we do as an economy using our local currency rather than over-reliance or dependence on the foreign currency account. So I think those are the major highlights that I picked from the budget presentation. And on top of that, the projected economic growth of 5% is above the SADC average that was shown, including various countries that are in the SADC. So I think an economic growth of 5% is something that is sustainable. It's not an overshoot, but it's something that we can achieve with the policies that we are coming up with. And that is the right direction that we are taking towards the Vision 2030 of the upper middle class economy. And this year's growth is projected to be around 6%, and first half growth is above the second half growth that we had this year. The average for first half was exceeding 8%, and it is projected to end the year around 6.6%. And next year, the economic growth, yes, it will slightly recede, but it's still growth in GDP to 5%, which is something that is positive. And if we maintain that momentum as we implement the National Development Strategy 2, I think as an economy, we will be able to achieve our targets.
Okay, let's just go back to VAT. The 0.5% increase, what does it really mean to the people of Zimbabwe? They really want to understand the implications of that, because if you can break it down and maybe explain further to say, if you are going to have a 0.5% increase on VAT, what does that mean in terms of the prices?
So it means there will be a slight adjustment in terms of the price, because remember, VAT, it's an indirect tax that is collected by third parties on behalf of the government. So government is proposing an increase of 0.5%, which is from 15%, the current VAT that we are that is already there, to 15.5%. So that may reflect in slight price increase, but that will not be significant because it's not a significant adjustment in VAT.
Okay, we also talk about economic growth being maybe informed by what is happening out there at the international community. But I want to know what is our target for 2030 is a per capita income of 3.5 thousand. So now we are at 3.2. What do you attribute this achievement to? Because mid-term we're around 3,000, and now we had the minister there saying that we are now at 3.2. So what do we attribute that to?
I think it has been a process we have been going through. Remember, we started with the Transitional Stabilization Program that was meant to bring macroeconomic stability, because when the current minister took over, things were not so okay in terms of the macroeconomic environment. So that was the initial stage where there was an introduction of austerity measures. Then we moved into National Development Strategy 1, where we're seeing support, especially in the primary sectors of the economy. We saw support being given to mining sector and reforms in terms of policies as well. That was meant to reduce externalization and smuggling of smuggling out of country of some precious minerals. We also seen support that was going to agricultural sector. So that has all been building up towards the economic growth that we are realizing now. We've also seen reforms in terms of the monetary sector of the economy. We've seen reforms in terms of the currency, the introduction of the new currency, which has brought stability in terms of the exchange rate, and that is also filtered to the stability in terms of the price rate, in terms of the prices. And that is all culminated in the trajectory that we have taken as an economy, where we are now seeing growth. And if we were to take up that trajectory and those measures that have been implemented and fully implement the strategies that have been proposed under the National Development Strategy 1 and what the government is proposing through the Treasury under the national budget for 2026, I think as an economy we're moving in the right direction.
Yes, Titus, you did highlighted that for the formulation, the part of the formulation process is to have consultations with the various stakeholders. And now that we see ministries placing a bid of about 828 billion, which means there were consultations that were done for them to be able to come up with such kind of a figure, right? So why is it that we're going to have a figure, a budget, which is about 3.5 less than, or what rather, which is way below half of what is available?
Yes, so when you are doing macroeconomic management, at times you have to eat what you kill. And the minister actually explained it, that the bids that came from the ministries and other departments were exceeding what the country is capable of producing, of generating in terms of revenue. And those bids were exceeding by 3.5%, like you have rightly alluded to. So what it basically means is that they have to be cut down in order to be more realistic, in line with the revenue generation capacity of the government. Otherwise, if those bids are to be merged with the revenues, that will actually have an impact in terms of the taxes that will be charged by the government to individuals, to businesses alike. So that there is need to have that balance in terms of the revenue generations and the bids that come from the ministries. Of course, they've got the right to speculate and come up with huge bids, because they are being asked to come up with bids. But at the end of the day, it is the prerogative of the honourable minister to do allocations in line with what is necessary and what is important as the economy is rolling out its blueprint policies, such as the National Development Strategy 2 that we've seen being launched today.
At some point during the course of the year, we had an outcry, a serious concern with the state of our health service delivery. And now we see government allocating a significant amount, 34.4 billion, which also complies with the Abuja declaration. Are you impressed? Do you think now we're going to see a big change in terms of the health service delivery, because there were shortages and medicine, supply of medicines and medical supplies, dilapidated infrastructure, obsolete equipment? Do you think this allocation is sufficient?
Definitely, I'm happy because we are now in line with agreements that are done at international level. The Abuja declaration clearly stipulated that 15% of the budget allocation should go towards the health service sector, which is critical in terms of human capital development. Human capital development does not only limit itself to education, it also goes to health. We need the health youth so that they are able to contribute to economic development. So it is something that is positive and something that's good that we're seeing from the ministry. Yes, our health system was in a dilapidated state, but we're going to see improvement. Already there are improvements that we have seen in public hospitals such as Parerenyatko, and that is going to filter down to most of the general hospitals, and it is something that is important.
Okay, any final thoughts on today's budget before we conclude?
I think the major highlight of today's budget was a clear link in terms of the National Development Strategy and the national budget for 2026 that was presented. It is going to lay the foundation of the National Development Strategy. So the National Development Strategy is clear 10 pillars that were actually presented today earlier on. And the budget allocations from the minister himself, all the allocations were being linked to those 10 pillars of the National Development Strategy 1, which is a clear commitment from the government in terms of supporting economic growth and development in the country.
Thank you very much, Titus, for such an insightful analysis of today's budget presentation. Of course, we look forward to the further discussion on the budget in Parliament. Of course, we're going to have the Parliament either adopting the budget or rejecting the budget, but the hope is that we're going to have the budget being adopted. Well, thank you very much, viewers, for your time that you have stayed with us throughout the budget presentation. My name is Munyaradzi Musiwa. Until we meet again next time, it is a pleasant viewing.
Current Affairs, your window into Zimbabwe, where the world meets Zimbabwe. Join us for unscripted live events, state functions, parliamentary debates, independence, heroes, and defense forces celebrations, and many more. We are committed to telling the unbiased Zimbabwean story, giving you unfettered access to the latest news and developments shaping our nation. From the streets of Harare to the world stage, Current Affairs brings you the stories that matter most to Zimbabweans. Don't miss out on our in-depth coverage of local and international issues, expert analysis, and thought-provoking discussions. ZBC Current Affairs, where the world meets Zimbabwe. Stay informed, stay engaged, and stay ahead.
Festive is here, Shah. First Street lights up, and suddenly the vibe is back. It stretches from Harare to Hollywood, even to Old Trafford. Jesse Gilles Festive. All I want this festive season? The stories that keep us hooked. The ngoma, the rhythm, the laughter, the drama, the goals, the world-class entertainment that brightens up the holidays for the whole family. All I want is DSTV.
Takaiona kufamba wave mutserendende neNew Dispensation, zvipatara nezvikoro zvawanda, uye muri kuzvivandudza, migwagwa iri kugadzirwa, tiri kuzviona shumba, taakukwanisa kuzvirimira tichikohwa goho repamusoro-soro, taakukwanisa kuunganidza zviuru nezviuru zvegoridhe. Tinotenda Murambwi, tiri kudya tichiguta, tiri kukohwa fodya yakawanda, zvipfuyo makatipa, madhamu nezvibhorani makatigadzirira. Tinotenda Murambwi.
The things I love about Harare is the hospitality. The people have genuine friendliness and a welcoming nature. There's a warm smile everywhere you turn.
It is the hub of everything.
It has good cultural diversity and is culturally accepting. And another key thing is it's free and safe. Just look at me basking in the sun of the Sunshine City.
I'm driving through Africa, and for me Harare has just the best climate, and I love it. It's so green and lush. I really think it's a beautiful city.
pura